Welcome everyone to the audio version of every territorial anomaly in Africa explained. This isn't just the original video turned into audio form, I changed the script where necessary and re-recorded everything. Also I added more information where the lack of a visual makes it necessary, so I suppose you can consider it a slightly revised version. With that out of the way, enjoy! Abyei, Heglig, Joda, Kafia, Kingi, and Kaka are disputed areas/towns between Sudan and South Sudan. Sudan and the Sudan People's Liberation Movement/Army signed the Comprehensive Peace Agreement in 2005. You can imagine how comprehensive it must be if there are 5 places immediately in the first point, but I didn't read the treaty as it's 250 pages long. In summary, Abyei was to be self-governing and its people to be represented by both countries' respective states for 5 years, after which it was to hold a referendum about which Sudan they wish to belong to. That has been postponed indefinitely since 2011 because they couldn't agree on the eligibility requirements. The other 4 regions I mentioned were fought over because of oil or minerals they have. Banc du Geysir is a mostly submerged reef above Madagascar claimed by Madagascar, Comoros, and France. France says they have an exclusive economic zone over it because it's part of the EEZ of their Glorioso Islands, which are some random islands that France has. Madagascar has announced the annexation of Banc du Geysir in 1976, but it is still controlled by France today. Bassas da India is an uninhabited atoll, and Europa Island and Juan de Nova Island are islands disputed between France and Madagascar. France claims these to be part of their EEZ and sent a 14-soldier-strong garrison to Juan de Nova Island to respond to Madagascar claiming these areas. Ceuta and Melilla are decent-sized cities, the Alhucemas Islands and the Chafarinas Islands are islands, and Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera is a peninsula held by Spain left over from their colonial territories claimed by Morocco. These are also called Plazas de Soberanía or places of sovereignty. Morocco claims these places by basically saying that Spain has no business existing in Africa, comparing them to Gibraltar, which I'll talk about in the Europe episode, and their prime minister said in 2020, Ceuta and Melilla are as Moroccan as the Sahara, which I'll also talk about later, which enraged Spain, who summoned the Moroccan ambassador and told him to respect Spain as it is. Also, presumably, Spain doesn't want to give them up because then Catalonia would have a slightly stronger claim for secession. Fun fact, the border between Spain and Morocco on Peñón de Vélez de la Gomera is about 80 meters long, which makes it one of, if not the shortest international borders in the world. Less fun fact, these places aren't under NATO protection because that only extends to Europe and North America, and since these are in North Africa, they aren't covered by NATO protection. The Chagos Archipelago is a group of atolls disputed between the UK, Mauritius, the Seychelles, and the Maldives, but is controlled by the UK. Mauritius demanded displaced people to be repatriated and for the archipelago to fall under Mauritian sovereignty, which the UK denied in 2016 and was subsequently taken to the International Court of Justice. Ras Dumeira is a cape, and the Dumeira Islands are islands disputed between Eritrea and Djibouti. Djibouti accused Eritrea of shelling the islands in 1996, and they almost went to war over them. The Glorioso Islands are islands claimed by Madagascar, Comoros, and is controlled by France. I already talked about them in the Banc du Geysir chapter. The Hala-Eb Triangle is a roughly triangle-shaped area claimed by Egypt and Sudan. So basically, both were British colonies at some point, and the UK drew a political boundary in 1899 which runs along the 22nd parallel, and an administrative boundary in 1902 which isn't as straight. When the countries became independent, both claimed the border to be the boundary that gave them the Hala-Eb Triangle. Today it is held by Egypt, who is investing in the area and refuses to enter into negotiations for who it should belong to. Fun fact, because of opposing boundary claims, technically a nearby upside-down trapezoid-shaped piece of land called Birtaville is unclaimed. So technically, anyone could go there and claim it, but since nobody lives there and nothing is there, it would be a pretty stupid idea. However, an American guy called Jeremiah Heaton did do that in 2014 because his daughter wanted to be a real princess. So he declared the Kingdom of North Sudan, which even has a website, kingdomsudan.org, and has applied for UN observer status. Now that's dedication. The Ilemi Triangle is a roughly triangle-shaped area disputed between Kenya and South Sudan because of more British-drawn lines and oil found in the area. The oil and Kenya drawing maps of their territory, including the Ilemi Triangle, and also the Sudanese civil war have delayed the resolution of this dispute. It is controlled by Kenya, and Ethiopia staged some skirmishes but haven't made any claim, agreeing that it was Sudanese in multiple treaties. Kaungwane is a former Bantustan and Ingwavuma is a city in South Africa claimed by Eswatini because of the many Swazi living in the area. Ingwavuma was planned to be transferred to Eswatini, then Swaziland, but the Zulu king didn't like it, so it wasn't. Koalu is a village part of a 68 square kilometer, about 26.25 square mile, zone, which also includes the villages Niorgu 1 and Niorgu 2, disputed between Burkina Faso and Benin. The two countries' leaders talked it out in 2008 and declared the zone a neutral zone to avert a war, which is what most other African territorial disputes end up causing, sadly. Kupeaba is a village near the border of Ivory Coast, also called Côte d'Ivoire, with Guinea. The two countries agreed to withdraw their forces in 2013. The area near Loguba/Moyo district is an area disputed between Uganda and South Sudan because of some more British-drawn lines. A conflict was triggered in 2014 when some Ugandan officials were detained by South Sudanese authorities. Chiengi is a colonial boma/district and Lonchinda Pweto province is a province disputed between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Zambia. Chiengi was merged into Zambia's Nchelenge district in the 1970s after Zambia gained independence from the UK in 1964 and was upgraded to a full administrative district in the 1990s. The region was also affected by wars, most recently the Second Congo War between 1998 and 2003. The area near Pweto, a small village, is disputed due to different interpretations of the Anglo-Belgian Treaty of 1894, which carved up the Congo area to colonize. At least I assume so. I wanted to read it, but the website it's on would have needed me to pay $51, and I sure as hell ain't gonna pay for a 129-year-old treaty. Mayotte is an island near Madagascar currently administered by France but claimed by Comoros. The UN General Assembly adopted Resolution 46/9 to reaffirm Comorian sovereignty over Mayotte. Yes, I actually read this one. But since UN General Assembly resolutions aren't legally binding, France wasn't obliged to do anything. Islands in Mbamba Bay are islands, and Lake Malawi is a lake disputed between Malawi and Tanzania. Malawi claims the entirety of Lake Malawi that isn't in Mozambique's territory is in Malawi, whereas Tanzania claims that Malawi should only have half of the lake. It's kinda difficult to explain with words, but basically Malawi claims their half of the lake and what Tanzania would have if you split the lake up equally. Also, Malawi claims the islands in Mbamba Bay. Both countries signed the Heligoland-Zanzibar Treaty between the UK and the German Empire, so it's another case of old-ass treaty misinterpretation. Mbanye, Cocotiers, and Congas are islands disputed between Gabon and Equatorial Guinea. Nobody really cared about these islands, but after Equatorial Guinea gained independence from Spain, someone claimed that the islands have oil. Gabon militarily occupied Mbanye, which Equatorial Guinea considered an invasion. In 2004, they agreed to jointly look for oil, and in 2011, they agreed to take the matter to The Hague's court and accept the verdict. This was reaffirmed in 2016 and 2017 at the UN. Everything I said about these islands came from the Spanish Wikipedia article's Conflicto Territorial section, Google translated, so take it with a grain of salt. Also, to my knowledge, no UN resolution, or anything else really, has been decided about this since. Several islands in the Congo River are disputed between the Republic of the Congo and the Democratic Republic of the Congo because the border hasn't been clearly defined. Several islands in the Entem River are disputed between Cameroon and Equatorial Guinea. Similarly to the last one, the border was never clearly defined. Several villages near the Okpara River are disputed between Benin and Nigeria, similarly to the last two, because the border was never clearly defined. Rufunzo Valley is a valley and Sabanerva is a wide cone-shaped hill disputed between Rwanda and Burundi. The dispute is a result of the river Kanyaru changing course and flowing around Sabanerva, and since the river is the border between the two countries, it's not decided who Sabanerva belongs to. Rukwanzi Island is an island and the Semliki River Valley is a valley disputed between the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Uganda. The river is the border between the two, but it's not clear which the island belongs to. In 2007, the DRC apprehended 4 Ugandan soldiers it said had crossed the border. A skirmish ensued, which resulted in 2 people killed and the Congolese occupation of the island. Sindabezi Island is an island disputed between Zambia and Zimbabwe. In 1994, Zambia started using Sindabezi Island, 50 meters from Zimbabwe's shore, for tourism, and then Zimbabwe claimed the island for themselves, saying the border ran along the middle of the river. Socotra is an archipelago disputed between Yemen and nobody else. Somalia doesn't claim the archipelago, but has asked the UN to look into if they're allowed to claim it. At least this Somalian website that Wikipedia cites says so. If you're interested, it's hiran.com, and it looks like it's been stuck in 2006. In 2018, because of the Yemeni civil war, forces from the United Arab Emirates took control of Socotra for strategic reasons, and Saudi Arabian troops were also deployed there. They have since returned it to Yemen. However, in 2020, the Southern Transitional Council, a Yemeni secessionist organization, took control of the island. They still control Socotra, and the Yemeni civil war is still yet to reach a conclusion, unfortunately. Tromalin Island is an island disputed between France and Mauritius. This is the 5th and final dispute that France has in Africa. The two countries agreed to set a condominium over the island, so it's technically part of both countries, but it's administered by France. Mauritius says they should have the island because when Napoleonic France was defeated in 1814, it was restored to their 1792 borders, although a French ship had already discovered the island in 1776. Also, there is a meteorological station on the island, and it has an EEZ of 280,000 square kilometers, overlapping with that of Réunion, another French territory nearby. Wadi Halfa is a salient, an elongated piece of projection of a geopolitical entity, disputed between Egypt and Sudan. As with the Halaib Triangle, Egypt claims one line the British drew and Sudan claims the other. What have I signed up for? Alright, let's do this. Western Sahara is part of the Sahara Desert, disputed between Morocco and the partially recognized entity known as the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic / Polisario Front. The area was partitioned between Morocco and Mauritania, however Polisario guerrilla fighters showed up, then Mauritania gave up claims and Morocco moved in to occupy the territory. The SADR controlled the eastern side of the border wall that I assume Mauritania used to occupy. The area is filled with landmines, but despite this, nomads still live there. Aside from the Polisario forces, UN forces are also present. About a few thousand Polisario forces operate in the area, but that's just speculation, and since they signed a ceasefire with Morocco, some of them could have demobilized. And with that, Africa is done! Thank you for listening all the way through, and if you're interested about the other continents, go listen to those episodes.